y bienvenidos. Today we are going to talk about Spanish subject pronouns. So let's begin. What are subject pronouns, you might ask? Well, subject pronouns are the words that usually come at the beginning of a sentence. They indicate who is performing the action. Sometimes they are left out when they become unnecessary. This is often the case in Spanish. In Spanish, we conjugate the verbs, and because of this conjugation, it is usually clear who the subject is without needing to use the subject pronoun explicitly. Here are examples of the subject pronouns we have in English. I, you, and then we have the third person pronouns, he, she, or it. And then we have we and they. Speaking English, you are probably very familiar with these pronouns. We use them almost everywhere in English since we don't usually conjugate our verbs in English. We do on a few verbs, but usually not. Let's talk about the Spanish subject pronouns now. These, you've probably seen a few of these before, so we'll just briefly touch on how they're pronounced. Yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, and finally, ustedes. There's a couple things I want to note about these subject pronouns. The first is vosotros. As you've probably noticed, I put an asterisk and I wrote Spain next to that asterisk. Basically, this pronoun is mainly used in Spain and not in Latin America. If you use vosotros in Latin America, people will probably not understand you very well. On the flip side, as you can see below, we have another subject pronoun, ustedes, which has the same meaning as vosotros, but ustedes is commonly used in Latin America instead. And like if you use vosotros in Latin America, if you use ustedes in Spain, you might be understood better, but chances are you'll seem a little bit weird. So those are just some things to keep in mind. Also, vosotros has its own verb conjugation that I will be teaching you throughout this series, but chances are you won't ever need to use it if you only plan on speaking to Spanish speakers here in the Americas. But if you ever go to Spain, at least you'll be able to thank me. And then the conjugation for ustedes is actually just the same as the ellos and ellas conjugation. So it's the third person plural, and we'll go over how you conjugate the third person plural later in this series. And the final thing I want to mention is you might be asking, why do we have ellos and ellas if they both mean they? Well, in Spanish, they like to differentiate between if you're talking about a group of exclusively men, a group of men and women mixed, or simply a group of women. And in a nutshell, we use ellos when we're talking about either a group of just men or a group of men and women mixed, while the only case we would use ellas is if we were talking about just women. Other than that, verbs are always conjugated the same way for both ellos and ellas. Just think of it as extra clarification when you speak Spanish. And that is all. Gracias por mirar. Don't forget to share this video and channel if you found any of this information helpful with family and friends who would also like to learn a new language. And last but not least, your homework for today. I would like you to write a sentence in the comments below using one of the Spanish subject pronouns we learned today. It can be a really short sentence. I just want to see that you understand how to use these subject pronouns we talked about. Hasta luego.